The dinner had gone cold 2 hours ago. I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the steamless plate in front of me. The pasta had hardened. The candle I lit for no reason had almost burned out. My phone rested beside my glass of water. No messages, no calls, nothing from my wife. Again, I checked the time. 8:47 p.m. Victoria had promised she would be home by 7. That promise joined hundreds of others buried somewhere in the last 7 years. I pushed the plate away and leaned back. The house was beautiful, too beautiful. A giant modern home with floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, expensive furniture, and enough empty space to make loneliness echo. People thought I lived a dream life. They saw Victoria Hayes, the famous CEO, the business magazines, the interviews, the awards, the smiling photos. Nobody saw this. Nobody saw me sitting alone with cold food while my wife built an empire. The front door finally opened. I looked up. Victoria walked inside while speaking in her phone. Her heels clicked across the floor. She didn't notice the dinner, didn't notice me, didn't notice anything except work. Move the meeting to Thursday. She dropped her purse onto a chair. No, Thursday. A pause. Her eyes moved toward me for half a second, then back to her call. Good. She disconnected. The room became quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The uncomfortable kind. The kind that grows between two people when they stop knowing how to talk to each other. You ate? She asked. I glanced at the untouched plates. You tell me. Her eyes follow mine. Oh, that single word. No apology. No concern. Just another item on a checklist. I got stuck at the office. I nodded. The explanation felt automatic now, like hearing weather reports. Rain tomorrow. Meetings tonight. Your husband can wait. Victoria loosened her jacket and headed toward the stairs. Big day tomorrow. I stared her back. Victoria. She stopped. What? The question carried impatience. Not curiosity. Not warmth. I swallowed the frustration that had become part of my daily routine. We haven't had dinner together in almost 3 weeks. A tired sigh escaped her. Ethan, not tonight. When then? Another pause. Long enough to hurt. Short enough to reveal the truth. She didn't have an answer. I need a shower. Then she walked upstairs. The conversation ended before it began. Just like always. My eyes returned to the cold dinner. 7 years. 7 years of choosing her. 7 years of believing things would get better after the next project. The next funding round. The next company milestone. The next success. There was always another mountain waiting. And every time she reached the top, she immediately started climbing a new one. Meanwhile, I stayed behind. Waiting. Supporting. Believing. A memory slipped into my mind. 7 years earlier. A tiny office. Broken chairs. Unpaid bills. Victoria crying at her desk after investors pulled out. Back then, she wasn't CEO. She was just a woman with a dream. And I loved her enough to bet my future on it. I had received a career offer from one of the biggest consulting firms in the country. The kind of opportunity people spend years chasing. I turned it down. Stayed beside her. Used my savings. Worked behind the scenes. Helped her survive. Helped her build. Never regretted it. Until recently, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. You still alive? A small smile appeared. Barely. I typed back. Trying. His response arrived immediately. See you tomorrow at the gala? Wouldn't miss it. Liar. That earned a quiet laugh. Daniel knew me too well. The company's 7th anniversary gala. 500 guests. Executives. Investors. Reporters. Everyone celebrating Victoria's success. I locked my phone. Somewhere upstairs, water started running. Victoria was home, yet the house still felt empty. The next evening looked like a movie. Crystal chandeliers, live music, champagne glasses, designer suits, expensive smiles. Everything sparkled, everything except me. I adjusted my tie while standing near the ballroom entrance. Victoria stood across the room speaking with investors. She looked incredible. Elegant black dress. Perfect posture. The kind of confidence that pulled attention from every corner. People surrounded her, admired her, praised her. I watched from a distance. Not because I wanted to, because that's where I always seem to end up. A hand landed on my shoulder. Daniel, you're making that face again. What face? The one that says you're attending your own funeral. I snorted. Good to see you too. His expression softened. How are things? I looked toward Victoria. That answered the question. Daniel followed my gaze. Still bad. Worse. Before he could respond, movement near the stage drew attention. Ryan Brooks, the company's COO. Tall, sharp suit, perfect smile. The kind of man who always knew exactly what to say. He walked directly toward Victoria. Too comfortably, too confidently. She smiled the moment she saw him. Something about that bothered me. Maybe because I couldn't remember the last time she smiled like that at me. Ryan leaned closer and showed her something on a tablet. They laughed together, then headed toward the stage. Daniel noticed my expression. You trust him? I don't know. Neither do I. That answer stayed with me. The event officially began. Applause filled the ballroom. Victoria stepped onto the stage. The crowd immediately focused on her. Natural. She belonged there. She thanked employees, investors, partners, mentors, everyone who helped build the company. The audience loved every second. Then she started introducing important people. Department heads, executives, board members. Ryan received one of the loudest ovations. A few minutes later, her eyes landed on me. There is one more person here tonight. Spotlights turned. My stomach tightened. Victoria smiled. The professional smile, not the personal one. My husband, Ethan. Polite applause. I nodded awkwardly. Victoria laughed lightly. He's been around since the beginning. More applause. Then came the sentence that changed everything. Honestly, anyone could have taken his place. Laughter rolled through the room. Not cruel laughter. The casual kind. The dangerous kind. Because nobody else understood what those words meant. My smile froze. Victoria kept going. He mostly stays out of the way and lets me work. More laughter. The room felt smaller. Hotter. A reporter near the front raised a hand. What does your husband do? The question seemed harmless. Victoria answered immediately. Nothing exciting. More chuckles. Then she shrugged. He's basically a nobody compared to the people up here. The laughter came again. Louder. My ears rang. Nobody. The word hit harder than I expected. Because it came from her. Not a stranger. Not an enemy. Her. The woman I loved. The woman I built my life around. I stood there while conversations continued around me. People smiling. People drinking. People moving on. Nobody noticed that something had broken. Maybe because only I could hear it. Across the room, Daniel looked horrified. Ryan looked away quickly. Victoria continued speaking, completely unaware. Or maybe she didn't care. I wasn't sure which possibility hurt more. The ride home felt endless. Victoria talked about the event, the investors, the media coverage, the future. I barely heard any of it. Eventually she noticed. You've been quiet. I kept my eyes on the road ahead. Have I? You're upset. A bitter laugh escaped me. You call me a nobody. She blinked. What? At the gala? Oh, come on. The dismissal arrived instantly. It was a joke. A joke. Of course. Everything painful becomes a joke when the right person says it. You embarrass me in front of hundreds of people. Victoria rubbed her forehead. Ethan, you're overreacting. Those two words hurt almost as much as the first. Overreacting. The favorite weapon of people who don't want to take responsibility. The rest of the drive passed in silence. When we reached home, she headed upstairs. No apology. No discussion. Nothing. I remained in the living room. Sleep felt impossible. Hours later, I wandered into the home office. Mostly to distract myself. Mostly to avoid thinking. A folder rested on the desk. Company documents. Probably work she brought home. I almost ignored it. Then I noticed my name. Curiosity pulled me closer. I opened the folder. Read the first page. Then the second. Then the third. My heartbeat slowed. Not from calm. From shock. The document was dated 4 years ago. A revised founding agreement. Legal signatures. Board approval. Ownership changes. And one detail that made my hands go cold. My name had been removed. Completely. Every mention erased. Every right gone. Every contribution deleted. A signature sat at the bottom. Victoria Hayes. I stared at the page. Again and again. Hoping I misunderstood. Hoping there was another explanation. There wasn't. The woman upstairs had quietly erased me years ago, and she never told me. I looked toward the ceiling, toward the room where my wife slept peacefully, then back at the document in my trembling hands. The humiliation from the gala suddenly felt much smaller, because this was worse, much worse. This wasn't a careless joke. This was a secret, and somehow, deep inside, I already knew one thing. My marriage was hiding far more than I had ever imagined. The document stayed on my desk all night. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my name disappearing from those pages. Erased, removed, forgotten. The sun was already rising when Victoria came downstairs. She looked fresh, rested, completely unaware that my world had cracked open a few hours earlier. "You're up early." I folded the document and slid it into a drawer before she could see it. Couldn't sleep. She poured coffee into a mug. "Big client meeting today." Of course, there was always a meeting, always another deal, another crisis, another excuse. The woman standing in front of me had hidden something enormous from me. Yet she moved through the morning as if nothing had happened. Maybe because, to her, nothing had. She grabbed her keys. "I'll be late tonight." The front door opened, then closed, and once again I was alone. This time, I wasn't waiting. I was searching. By noon, I was sitting across from Daniel Reed, my oldest friend, the one person who never treated me like an accessory to Victoria's success. He studied the copied agreement while rubbing his jaw. The deeper he read, the darker his expression became. "This is bad," I figured. "No." He placed the papers on the table. "Worse than bad." A long breath escaped him. "When did you find this?" "Last night." And she never mentioned it. Not once. Daniel leaned back. The silence between us carried more weight than words. Finally, he tapped the page. "This wasn't an accident. I know. Somebody made a deliberate decision to remove you." The sentence hit harder hearing it out loud. I already knew the truth, but knowing and hearing weren't the same thing. Part of me still wanted another explanation. A misunderstanding. A legal technicality. Anything. Daniel wasn't giving me false hope. "You need answers." "I need facts." That earned a nod. "Good." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Because you're too emotional right now to confront her." I couldn't argue with that. The anger was there. The hurt was there. The questions were endless. If I confronted Victoria immediately, she would explain it away. Maybe I'd even believe her. No, I needed the whole picture first. The next few days became an investigation. I dug through old emails, archived files, financial records, anything connected to the company's early years. The deeper I looked, the more memories returned. A tiny office with leaking ceilings, second-hand furniture, overdue bills, the smell of cheap coffee. Victoria sitting on the floor one night because she was too exhausted to stand. Back then we were a team, or at least I thought we were. One old folder caught my attention, a financial transfer record. 7 years old. I opened it, then stared, and stared, and stared. The amount was exactly what I remembered. Every dollar, every cent. My inheritance. The money my grandfather left me before he died. Money that could have changed my life. Money that was supposed to help me build my future. I had sold everything. The cabin, the land, the investments, everything. A voice echoed inside my head. Not from today, from years ago. Victoria sitting beside me in that tiny office, tears running down her face. "We can still save this." I remembered placing the paperwork in front of her, her hands shaking, her eyes widening. "Ethan, we use the money." "No, we use it." "You can't. We can build it back." She grabbed my hands that night. I'll never forget this. Another memory, another promise. We're building this together. Together. The word felt almost funny now. I closed the folder. My reflection stared back from the black monitor screen. Tired, older, but no longer blind. 3 days later, another piece of the puzzle appeared, and somehow, it hurt more than the legal documents. I was searching through archived communication records when I noticed something strange. Dozens of messages. Messages I had sent Victoria. Messages marked unread. At first, I assumed it was a system error. Then I opened them, one after another. A birthday message, unread. An anniversary message, unread. A message asking if she wanted dinner. Unread. A message after I spent 8 hours in the hospital waiting room when Daniel had surgery. Unread. A message telling her I missed her. Unread. There were dozens. Months of them. My hand froze over the mouse. A sick feeling settled in my stomach. Victoria ignored many things. But she wasn't the type to leave messages unopened. Something felt wrong. I started digging again. An hour later, I found the answer. The messages never reached her. They had been redirected, filtered, blocked, rerouted through her executive assistant. The assistant's settings automatically categorized personal messages as low priority. Most never made it into Victoria's inbox. I sat there staring at the screen. Anger slowly mixed with confusion. This changed things. Not everything, but something. The distance between us wasn't entirely deliberate. Some of it had been engineered, manipulated. I thought about all those nights, all those unanswered texts, all those moments when I believed she simply didn't care. The truth was more complicated, and somehow that made it worse. Because now I didn't know who was responsible. Victoria, her staff, or someone else. The answer arrived sooner than expected. 2 days later, I attended a charity luncheon. Nothing formal, just a networking event. The moment I entered the room, conversations shifted. Eyes followed me. Whispers moved between tables. A familiar feeling settled in my gut. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Daniel appeared beside me. You heard? Heard what? His expression told me everything. A woman nearby lowered her voice. Not low enough. That's him. Another person nodded. The husband. The husband. Not Ethan. Not a person. Just an attachment. I turned toward Daniel. What happened? He exhaled slowly. A rumor started yesterday. My jaw tightened. What rumor? He hesitated, then gave me the truth. That you're living off Victoria. The room suddenly felt warmer. They think you contribute nothing. I laughed once. A short, humorless sound. Of course. Years of sacrifice. Years of support. Reduced to one rumor. Who started it? Daniel didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. The look on his face was enough. Ryan. That evening confirmed my suspicion. I arrived at Victoria's office building just before sunset. Through the glass conference room wall, I spotted her and Ryan. The meeting had already ended. Everyone else was gone. Only the two of them remained. Ryan stood beside her desk, speaking quietly, comfortably, like someone who belonged there. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read body language. Influence, control, trust. Then something happened. Victoria nodded. Ryan smiled, a satisfied smile. The kind people wear when they get exactly what they want. A cold realization moved through me. He wasn't just working beside her. He was shaping her decisions. Maybe for years. My phone buzzed. Daniel. I answered immediately. His voice sounded different. Urgent. Concerned. Ethan. What happened? You need to come to my office. What? A pause. Paper shuffled somewhere on his end. Then came the sentence that made my blood run cold. I found evidence that Ryan's preparing new legal documents. The city lights blurred outside the window. My grip tightened around the phone. What kind of documents? Another pause. Long enough to prepare me for bad news. Not long enough to soften it. Documents that could remove you completely. My heart pounded. Remove me from what? The company. Daniel's voice dropped lower. And any remaining claim you might still have. The call ended. I remained outside the building, staring through the glass. Victoria was still inside, still trusting the wrong person, still blind to what was happening around her. And somewhere inside that building, Ryan Brooks was preparing his next move. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. This was a war I hadn't realized I was fighting. Until now. The strangest part wasn't the anger. It was the peace. After weeks of digging through lies, documents, rumors, and forgotten promises, something inside me had finally stopped fighting. I wasn't healed. I wasn't happy. But I was done begging, done waiting, done standing outside my own marriage like a guest hoping to be invited inside. The change started quietly, one decision at a time, one step at a time. And Victoria didn't notice at first. You're smiling. Daniel leaned back in his chair and pointed at me. That's concerning. A small laugh escaped me. It isn't that bad. It is. He folded his arms. You've spent years looking like a man trapped in a burning building. I wasn't that dramatic. You absolutely were. The conversation felt lighter than usual. Not because my problems were gone, because I had finally started doing something about them. A laptop sat open between us. Pages of business plans filled the screen. Ideas, strategies, proposals. My ideas, my work, my future. Daniel tapped the screen. The client loved your presentation. That's one client. That's 3 clients. I blinked. What? He grinned. The second company signed this morning. A moment later, he slid another paper across the desk. And the third one signed 20 minutes ago. I stared at the contracts. 3 companies. 3 paying clients. 3 opportunities. The old version of me would have doubted himself. The version that spent years standing behind Victoria. The version who forgot he had talents of his own. That man was fading. Slowly. But he was fading. Daniel watched me carefully. You remember you're good at this, right? My fingers brushed the contract. It's been a long time. Still there. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Turns out you didn't become useless. Unlike some comments I'd heard recently. Unlike some jokes made at company galas. The memory stung. But not as deeply as before. Because now I had proof. I wasn't a nobody. I never was. The next few weeks changed everything. I left the house earlier. Returned later. Worked harder than I had in years. Built something that belonged to me. Victoria noticed eventually. Not immediately. Not because she paid attention. Because my absence disrupted her routine. One evening she entered my office while I reviewed client reports. Her expression carried irritation. Not concern. Not curiosity. I already knew the difference. You've been busy. I kept reading. So have you. A pause. She stepped closer. Dinner was at 7. I know. You didn't come. The irony almost made me laugh. 7 years. 7 years of cold dinners. Now she suddenly cared. I had work. Her eyebrows pulled together. Since when? The answer sat right in front of her. She simply hadn't bothered looking. I started consulting again. You never mentioned it. I closed the laptop. You never asked. The room became uncomfortable. Victoria wasn't used to that. She was used to conversations bending around her. Used to me smoothing things over. Making things easy. Not anymore. She crossed her arms. You've been acting strange. Maybe I've been acting honest. The words landed harder than I expected. A flash of frustration crossed her face. Then she turned and left. The door closed. The conversation ended. But something had shifted. She felt it too. 3 days later, I removed the wedding photo. The frame sat above the fireplace. A smiling version of us frozen in time. Back when we believed promises. Back when we still reached for each other's hands. I stood on a chair and lifted it from the wall. Dust outlined the place where it had been. A perfect rectangle. A ghost. The house suddenly looked different. Emptier. More truthful. The photo rested inside a box. Then I sealed the lid. That evening, Victoria walked into the living room. Her steps stopped. Immediately. Her eyes found the empty wall. What happened to the picture? I kept reading a report. I put it away. The answer clearly wasn't enough. What do you mean you put away? It means exactly what it sounds like. A long pause followed. The kind people create when they know something important is happening but don't understand why. Victoria stared at the wall again. Then at me. Then back at the wall. She walked upstairs without another word. For the first time in years, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. The suitcase came next. Not because I planned to leave that day. Because I needed to know I could. The bag sat open on the bed. Clothes folded neatly inside. Documents. Laptop. Essentials. A life reduced to what mattered. The bedroom door opened. Victoria froze. Her gaze locked onto the suitcase. Then onto me. Then back again. A strange fear appeared in her expression. Raw. Immediate. Real. What is that? I zipped a compartment closed. A suitcase. Don't do that. The words came out quickly. Almost instinctively. Don't do what? Her voice rose. Don't pretend. I stood quietly. Victoria stepped farther into the room. Are you leaving? The question lingered between us. Heavy. Dangerous. Honest. Finally. I don't know. That answer seemed worse than yes. No. She shook her head. No, that's not happening. The certainty in her voice almost made me smile. Not because it was funny, because she still thought she controlled the outcome. Ethan, what? You can't just walk away. The sentence echoed through the room. Something inside me finally snapped. Not loudly, not violently, quietly, like a rope breaking after years of strain. Can I? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You don't abandon your marriage. I stared at her, really stared, and suddenly all the years appeared. The empty dinners, the missed anniversaries, the unanswered messages, the public humiliation, the lies, the secrets, the loneliness. You want to talk about abandonment? My voice remained calm. That seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. When was our last vacation? No answer. When was the last anniversary you remembered without an assistant reminding you? Still nothing. When was the last dinner where your phone stayed in your pocket? Victoria looked away. I kept going, not shouting, not accusing, just telling the truth. When was the last time you asked if I was happy? The room felt smaller. Every question carried years behind it, years she couldn't erase. You call this a marriage. I gestured around us. I call it waiting. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, with realization, a much more painful thing. Ethan, I spent years choosing you. My hand rested on the suitcase. You stopped choosing me a long time ago. Victoria sat on the edge of the bed, speechless. The powerful CEO, the woman who could command boardrooms, the woman who always had answers. Now she had none. The next morning brought another surprise. A phone call, an elderly voice. Careful, measured. Mr. Carter? Speaking. My name is Samuel Grant. The name sounded familiar. Then I remembered. One of the company's earliest investors. Back when success wasn't guaranteed. Back when everything could still fail. I'd like to meet. An hour later, we sat across from each other inside a quiet cafe. Samuel stirred his coffee slowly. His expression carried the weight of experience. I watched that company grow. I nodded. So did I. His eyes softened. Not enough people know what you contributed. The comment caught me off guard. Samuel leaned forward. There are things you should know. The conversation that followed changed everything. Documents appeared. Emails. Records. Internal reports. Piece by piece. The picture became clearer. Ryan hadn't merely spread rumors. He had manipulated information for years. Certain reports never reached Victoria. Certain recommendations disappeared. Certain approvals were altered. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to increase his influence. Enough to isolate people he viewed as threats, including me. I stared at the evidence. A cold feeling settled inside me. He did this intentionally. Samuel nodded. That's my belief. And Victoria? The older man hesitated. Blind. Not malicious. Not innocent. Blind. The word followed me all the way home. Night had fallen by the time I returned. The house was dark, except for one room. Victoria's office. Light spilled into the hallway. I stepped closer, then stopped. Her voice drifted through the partially open door. Sharp. Confused. Shaken. Why wasn't I shown this? A page flipped. Then another. My pulse quickened. More papers rustled. Suddenly a loud thud echoed inside the room, as if something had been dropped. Then came a whisper, barely audible. No. I stepped into the doorway. Victoria stood beside her desk. Several documents scattered across the floor. Her face had gone pale. One trembling hand gripped a page. Her eyes lifted toward me. Fear lived inside them now. Real fear. Not fear of losing status. Not fear of failure. Something deeper. Something personal. The document slipped from her fingers. Ryan forged them. The words barely escaped her mouth. My gaze dropped to the papers. Then back to her. A storm was coming. And this time, neither of us would escape it unchanged. The document trembled in Victoria's hand. Mine didn't. That was the difference now. Weeks ago, I would have rushed toward her, comforted her, protected her from the truth. Now I simply stood there, watching, waiting. The forged signatures covered several pages. Financial approvals, board authorizations, internal records. Every one of them connected to Ryan. Victoria lowered herself into a chair. The powerful CEO, who could command thousands of employees, suddenly looked exhausted. Not weak, just shattered. How long? Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I already knew she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to herself, to the years, to every warning she ignored, to every moment she trusted the wrong person. I don't know. She pressed her palms against her forehead. I trusted him. The words hung in the room. Heavy, painful, human. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the altered agreement, the gala, the unread messages, the rumors, the loneliness. Sympathy faded, not because I hated her, because I finally understood that her pain didn't erase mine. The next week felt like watching a skyscraper collapse floor by floor. The investigation moved fast, much faster than anyone expected. Board members demanded answers. Investors demanded records. Lawyers appeared everywhere. Ryan's carefully built image started cracking, then breaking, then collapsing completely. One news article became 3. 3 became 10. 10 became dozens. Financial misconduct, fraud, manipulation of company records, unauthorized transfers, hidden communications. The headlines spread everywhere. People who once praised him now pretended they barely knew him. Funny how quickly loyalty disappears when consequences arrive. Daniel walked into my office carrying a folder. His expression almost looked impressed. They found more. I leaned back. How much more? Enough to make prison a possibility. That answer landed harder than I expected. For months, Ryan had felt untouchable, like a man always 5 steps ahead. Now he was running out of places to hide. Daniel tossed the folder onto my desk. Turns out greed makes people sloppy. I opened the file. The evidence seemed endless. Bank records, emails, altered contracts. Every page added another crack to the empire he built around himself. Then my eyes stopped on one specific document. My name appeared near the bottom. I frowned. What is this? Daniel pointed toward a highlighted section. Proof he helped remove you. A cold feeling settled inside me. The altered agreement. The one that erased my role. The one Victoria signed. Ryan had drafted it. Ryan had recommended it. Ryan had pushed it forward. My jaw tightened. Victoria signed the papers. That responsibility belonged to her. But suddenly the path leading there became much clearer and much uglier. The company wasn't the only thing falling apart. Victoria was changing too. Every day revealed another piece of the truth. Every day took something from her. Confidence, pride, certainty. One evening she appeared at my office door. No makeup, no designer jacket, no CEO mask. Just Victoria, the woman I fell in love with years ago. The woman buried beneath success. A folder rested in her hands. I found something. I didn't answer. She stepped inside, slowly, carefully, like she wasn't sure she belonged there anymore. The folder opened. Old records slid onto the desk. Bank statements, transfer documents, investment reports, my inheritance. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her eyes moved toward me. What is this? The question sounded strange, because she already knew. I could see it. The answer had already reached her. She simply couldn't accept it yet. My grandfather's inheritance. The document trembled in Victoria's hand. Mine didn't. That was the difference now. Weeks ago, I would have rushed toward her, comforted her, protected her from the truth. Now I simply stood there, watching, waiting. The forged signatures covered several pages. Financial approvals, board authorizations, internal records. Every one of them connected to Ryan. Victoria lowered herself into a chair. The powerful CEO, who could command thousands of employees, suddenly looked exhausted. Not weak, just shattered. How long? Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I already knew she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to herself, to the years, to every warning she ignored, to every moment she trusted the wrong person. I don't know. She pressed her palms against her forehead. I trusted him. The words hung in the room. Heavy, painful, human. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the altered agreement, the gala, the unread messages, the rumors, the loneliness. Sympathy faded, not because I hated her, because I finally understood that her pain didn't erase mine. The next week felt like watching a skyscraper collapse floor by floor. The investigation moved fast, much faster than anyone expected. Board members demanded answers. Investors demanded records. Lawyers appeared everywhere. Ryan's carefully built image started cracking, then breaking, then collapsing completely. One news article became 3. 3 became 10. 10 became dozens. Financial misconduct, fraud, manipulation of company records, unauthorized transfers, hidden communications. The headlines spread everywhere. People who once praised him now pretended they barely knew him. Funny how quickly loyalty disappears when consequences arrive. Daniel walked into my office carrying a folder. His expression almost looked impressed. They found more. I leaned back. How much more? Enough to make prison a possibility. That answer landed harder than I expected. For months, Ryan had felt untouchable, like a man always 5 steps ahead. Now he was running out of places to hide. Daniel tossed the folder onto my desk. Turns out greed makes people sloppy. I opened the file. The evidence seemed endless. Bank records, emails, altered contracts. Every page added another crack to the empire he built around himself. Then my eyes stopped on one specific document. My name appeared near the bottom. I frowned. What is this? Daniel pointed toward a highlighted section. Proof he helped remove you. A cold feeling settled inside me. The altered agreement. The one that erased my role. The one Victoria signed. Ryan had drafted it. Ryan had recommended it. Ryan had pushed it forward. My jaw tightened. Victoria signed the papers. That responsibility belonged to her. But suddenly the path leading there became much clearer and much uglier. The company wasn't the only thing falling apart. Victoria was changing too. Every day revealed another piece of the truth. Every day took something from her. Confidence, pride, certainty. One evening she appeared at my office door. No makeup, no designer jacket, no CEO mask. Just Victoria, the woman I fell in love with years ago. The woman buried beneath success. A folder rested in her hands. I found something. I didn't answer. She stepped inside, slowly, carefully, like she wasn't sure she belonged there anymore. The folder opened. Old records slid onto the desk. Bank statements, transfer documents, investment reports, my inheritance. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her eyes moved toward me. What is this? The question sounded strange, because she already knew. I could see it. The answer had already reached her. She simply couldn't accept it yet. My grandfather's inheritance. Every person in the room waited for my answer. Investors, lawyers, reporters, board members. Victoria stood in front of them all, her eyes fixed on me. The same woman who once introduced me as a nobody. The same woman who forgot anniversaries, ignored warning signs, and let me disappear inside my own marriage. Now she was asking me not to leave. The irony almost hurt. Almost. Because the pain had already done its work. It had changed me. A few months ago, hearing those words would have felt like victory. Now they felt like a goodbye. I rose slowly from my chair. The room remained silent. Victoria's hands trembled slightly. Not from fear of public embarrassment. Something deeper. Something personal. Ethan. Her voice cracked. The rest of the sentence never came. I understood why. There were no perfect words left. Not after everything. I stepped forward. Not close enough to touch her. Just close enough for honesty. You should have fought for us when we were still us. The room disappeared. For a moment, it felt like only the two of us existed. Victoria lowered her head. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I know. 3 simple words. No excuses. No blame. No defense. Just truth. I nodded. I walked back to my seat. The hearing continued. But something important had already ended. Ryan's downfall happened exactly the way people like him fear most. Publicly. Completely. Painfully. Every lie came out. Every forged document. Every hidden transfer. Every manipulated report. Months of investigations turned into formal charges. Then convictions. The media that once praised him now tore him apart. His reputation vanished. His career vanished. His influence vanished. One afternoon, Daniel dropped a newspaper onto my desk. The headline stretched across the entire front page. Former executive convicted in corporate fraud case. I stared at the article, then pushed it aside. Daniel raised an eyebrow. That's it. What? No, celebration? A small smile appeared. I already won. His expression softened. You finally figured that out. Maybe I had. Because Ryan was never the real problem. He exploited weaknesses that already existed. The bigger battle had always been me. My self-respect. My voice. My willingness to accept less than I deserved. That battle was finally over. The divorce process moved forward. Slowly. Quietly. Without drama. Without revenge. Victoria never fought me. Never tried to delay things. Never attacked me through lawyers. That surprised everyone. Not me. She finally understood. Too late. But she understood. One afternoon, we sat across from each other in a conference room. Stacks of paperwork covered the table. The final documents. The last signatures. The last legal threads connecting our lives. Victoria looked thinner than before. The months had changed her. The confidence remained. The arrogance didn't. A long pause stretched between us. Then she reached in her purse. A folded piece of paper appeared. She slid it toward me. What is it? Read it. I unfolded the page. A printed email. 7 years old. The same email I had shown her. The one about my inheritance. The one she forgot. But this copy was different. Handwritten notes filled the margins. Her handwriting. Words circled. Sentences highlighted. Memories scribbled beside them. My throat tightened. She had studied it. Again and again. Trying to understand the man she failed to see. Victoria stared at the table. I spent weeks reading old messages. I stayed quiet. She continued. The unread ones. The words landed softly. Painfully. The birthday message. A shaky breath escaped her. The anniversary message. Another pause. The one where you told me you missed me. The room felt smaller. Not because of anger. Because of regret. Real regret. The kind that cannot be fixed. Her fingers curled around the edge of the table. I thought success would make everything easier. A bitter smile touched her lips. It just made me blind. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then she finally looked up. No dramatic plea. No grand speech. Just honesty. I loved you. The sentence hung in the air. Past tense. Not present. Not future. Past. I understood why. Love existed. It simply wasn't enough. Not by itself. Not without respect. Not without effort. Not without choosing each other every day. My hand rested on the papers. I know. That answer seemed to hurt more than rejection. Because it carried acceptance. Acceptance that love had existed. An acceptance that it wasn't enough to save us. The wedding ring felt heavier than usual. A simple band. Small. Ordinary. Worth almost nothing. Yet somehow it carried 7 years inside it. I turned it slowly between my fingers. Victoria watched quietly. No tears. No begging. No attempt to stop me. Maybe she finally understood what this moment meant. The ring touched the signed documents. A soft metallic sound echoed across the table. Tiny, yet enormous. My marriage ended with that sound. Victoria closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, she nodded once. Almost like she was giving me permission. Maybe she was giving herself permission too. The lawyers collected the paperwork. The meeting ended. We stood. Neither of us moved toward the door. Neither of us knew how to leave. Eventually, Victoria broke the silence. I hope you're happy. The words weren't bitter. They weren't sarcastic. They were sincere. That made them harder to hear. A long breath left my lungs. I think I'm learning how. She nodded slowly, then stepped aside, making room for me to pass. The gesture felt symbolic. Years ago, I built my life around her. Now she was finally letting me walk my own path. 3 months later, life looked different. Not perfect, different. The consulting company had grown faster than I expected. New clients arrived every week. New opportunities followed. The word challenged me, excited me, reminded me who I was before I became somebody's support system. One Saturday afternoon, I attended a charity fundraising event, mostly because Daniel refused to stop inviting me. The ballroom buzzed with conversation, nothing unusual, until a familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. You look less miserable these days. I turned. Claire Bennett stood beside me holding 2 cups of coffee. A warm smile rested on her face. We had met briefly months earlier through a nonprofit partnership. Unlike most people, she spoke to me before she knew anything about Victoria. Before the headlines. Before the scandal. Before the success. She simply treated me like a person. I accepted the coffee. That's a strange compliment. It wasn't a compliment. Her eyes sparkled. It was an observation. A laugh escaped me. A real one. The kind that arrived naturally. Not forced. Not polite. Claire smiled. There it is. What? Proof you're still alive. The conversation flowed easily after that. No games. No pressure. No pretending. Just two people talking. And somehow, that felt extraordinary. Several weeks later, I walked out of the courthouse after one final administrative hearing. The sky was clear. The air felt lighter. The legal process was officially finished. No more paperwork. No more hearings. No more unfinished chapters. My phone vibrated. One message. I already knew who it was before checking. Victoria. My thumb hovered above the screen. For a moment, memories returned. Cold dinners. Late nights. Broken promises. Shared dreams. The wedding day. The goodbye. Everything. The message remained unopened. I stared at her name. Then I remembered another version of myself. The man who waited beside cold dinners. The man who sent messages that never received answers. The man who begged to be seen. He deserved better. Slowly, I opened my contacts. Victoria Hayes. My thumb pressed the screen. Delete contact. A confirmation box appeared. I didn't hesitate. The name disappeared. The screen went blank. The wind moved gently across the courthouse steps. Ahead of me waited a future I had built myself. Not through sacrifice. Not through survival. Through choice. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kept walking. And for the first time in years, I felt free.